It seems fun to document what's been apparently happening, what's been falling away or disappearing. And it's always good to emphasize that this is really just a description and it will always change, and it doesn't really say anything about how this has to look for anyone else. It just seems fun to document this stuff. It almost seems like an emptying out of the personal aspects of things. And it'll differ for everyone exactly what falls away and what doesn't. But for here, it seems like it really does seem like a disappearance. And there are some flashes of the personal aspect of things. Um, like for instance, the hope that seemed to be there for so long, maybe a whole lifetime of a certain relationship, wanting a certain relationship to look a certain way, to be a certain way, and then acting accordingly because of that want or that kind of vision. That seems to be dissolving. So the hope for that relationship to look a certain way is going. Or maybe it's gone now. I'm not sure. But it can feel a little awkward sometimes because there are habitual patterns, it seems, like thought patterns, or I'm not sure if it's emotional patterns, but certain patterns seem to come up that have a very personal feel to them, and they can't it seems like they can't be acted on anymore. So wanting to act a certain way, even though that want can be there out of habit, the body literally can't act the same way because the energy that was there as the personal free will, the personal doership, it seems to be dissolving. It seems to be gone. So it can even feel like a little bit of conflict, like the old way of being or wanting to be a certain way is in conflict with the energetic sense that there the person is gone. So the personal will is gone. The personal way of making my life a certain way, to act a certain way, it seems to be gone. So there can be some confusion or conflict. that comes up here and there. And with that, it can feel like a closing in that can happen. And it's really uncomfortable, and it can be tiring when it happens over and over, which is understandable. There can be subtle resistance to that and not wanting that to be there, and that's totally normal, I think, for any living organism. But in a way, all of it seems to be able to just like take care of itself, even with that sense of confusion and resistance and wanting things to kind of be a certain way, hoping that a relationship can mend in a certain way, and feeling the heartbreak of that, and the body knowing that it can't act that way anymore. It can't say certain things anymore. It can't pretend in the old way anymore. So there can be some grief in that. And then it kind of just is what it is. After a seeming mourning, the body just grieves, it mourns, and then it just is what it is. And on the outside, everything looks almost the same. Everything looks the same. Perhaps people can notice that you're a little more quiet, that you don't relate and interact in the same way. It seems like as you see through the facade of the effects of the person, what we call the person, because the person's already not there, but there are certain effects that make it seem like it feels real, or it's really there. And when you see through that more clearly, the energy to engage with that or interact with that or entertain it, let's say in daily life, it can diminish. So you can be a bit more, you can appear more quiet, potentially, because really there's nothing to say. There's no response to certain things. There's no need to engage in that old way. Like for here, it seems like there's no more need to smile, no more need to look happy, appear okay. That's not to say different reactions don't happen. Laughter can happen, smiling can happen, crying can happen. But there's a freedom to it. There is no needing to act a certain way. There's no box that you need to fit into. There's no personality that you stick by, even if it's, let's say, unconscious. It's just free to be whatever it is in every apparent moment. And so as there seems to be this disappearance of the personal aspects of things, then it's just pure life. The body acts or does things kind of like what it wants to do. It's very simple. There is no extra energy to force things, to do things because of a certain idea that's there or a mental wanting of things. The body seems like the energy just isn't there to make like a mental projection happen, it seems, for now. And there's no difference between life, everything, and the body anymore. The body acts very simply, does what it needs to do, does what it wants. It's not even registered as a want, it just kind of simply moves and does or doesn't do. There's no decision maker, there's no choice maker. Apparent decisions and choices are just simply being made. And they're not seen as decisions and choices. It's not really noticed that way. It's just simple movement or non movement. And there can still be thoughts of, I should do this, I should do that, maybe I should be more productive, you know? But they're just thoughts. It's not happening to anyone, for anyone. No one is producing them. It's just sound in a way. It's really clear that it's coming from nothing. And sometimes it can be clear that if the body feels, let's say, uncomfortable or sad, then sad thoughts can just come up to accompany that, and it kind of has no relevance. It's just a bit more, let's say, negative. And then when the body is more relaxed and calm, there are no thoughts or a bit more positive. It just seems clear that the thoughts have no relevance to much at all. Just seems to appear. And it's not appearing for anyone. It loses its power. And sensations in the body are really interesting because in a way they're so immediate because it's just what it is, and there's no one observing it or no one being aware of it. It just is. um, and if there's this a lot of discomfort, there can be some, wanting to get away from it or wanting to mend it. um, but largely it seems like it's just what it is, so it's just there. It just is. And a natural processing seems to happen, and thoughts can still race. There can be a lot of thoughts in those moments. Um, and perhaps the body can purge, it can release, it can cry, it can do whatever it needs to do, and then the thoughts seem to settle. So yeah, it really does seem like a disappearance. The personal effects to things that we called me, that we labeled as me in my life, they're dissolving on its own. And then it's just pure life living. It's not my life. It's not me living my life. It's not me in this body making decisions, doing things to create a dream of what I want my life to be, who I want to be, who I want to look like, and who I want others to perceive me as. It disappears and it all becomes a bit irrelevant. You can even say that there's a massive amount of healing that can happen because the person disappears. The person kind of heals itself completely and then is gone. So, in a way, it's not healing, it's more like a disappearance. But it seems like a deep healing happens before it completely disappears. But I don't know that for sure, but that's how it seemed here. And that wasn't an instantaneous thing. And there is no progress to this because it's just seen more clearly that it's just pure life living fully whole and complete already. And as there seems to be this so-called progress of a melting of the person or the disappearance of the person, it just becomes clearer and clearer that it was already this unconditional perfection all along. And that seems very conceptual, and it's not really understood conceptually anymore. It just is. It just is perfection in all of its horror, seeming horror and beauty. And it's not even registered as horror and beauty as much anymore. It's just simply that the body goes through what it goes through, processes things the way it does, moves the way it does. It's just free to simply live. Without the ability to manipulate things. It seemed a lot easier before to be able to manipulate things and control things and make things a certain way, make things my way. It seems pretty impossible now. In a way, the body is leading, but it's not leading because there's no one to lead. It's just doing what it's doing. It's just purely living, like everything, with no separation, no boundary. There is no real distinction between this body and anything else. It's just pure movement, the appearance of pure movement, but nothing's actually really happening. It's quite crazy. It's a bit unbelievable. So, as this disappearance kind of seems to take place, it can feel like a rebirth over and over. And then it's like there was never a rebirth because no one was reborn. It's the rebirth of nothing. So it's just emptiness. And rebirth then is not understandable. It's just another, I guess, idea. Um, and then it's just pure empty life, pure empty aliveness. And this emptiness can seem to have a negative feel to it for the person, like on the personal level, because the person is full of personal aspirations, personal will, personal desires, personal fears, personal everything. It's quite full of its own psychology, or it has its own energetic reality to it. And it feels really real, and it's very difficult, it seems, to look outside of it and to see what's beyond it, even though it actually is what's beyond it. It is inclusive of everything. This wholeness, this perfection is inclusive of everything. The personal, the sense of separation, the sense of me, the sense of self. So there already is no separation, no way to really distinguish. But in that seeming personal reality that seems to appear, it can be difficult to sense the kind of open and limitless infinity of just simply this, just simple life, ordinary life. Just walking, just thinking, just feeling. So from here, then it becomes pretty difficult to give the person, which already isn't there but can feel really real. It gets a little difficult to give the person anything, like a certain type of thing to do, a technique or practice to kind of, let's say, slow down the thoughts or give psychological reasoning for an emotion that's coming up, because it's so unknown. It's not definable. It's not really containable. You can't say for sure where anything is coming from, why it's appearing, and no one can say that for sure. And so, in a sense, the best guide that there is, even though there is no one to guide, the best thing is, it seems like that own sense of, you can say intuition, but it sounds like an actual thing. It's just the body doing or not doing. And, sometimes I know, like, when the personal reality feels really strong, it can be really difficult to distinguish what that intuitive sense actually is and what it's actually saying in a way. Because I know, like, the mental chatter can seem really loud. It can seem to overpower sometimes. And so that then in that respect, I can see how certain practices and techniques can be useful in that intensity where there's a sense of feeling quite lost or just super helpless in a way. So in a way, it could be good to relax the whole system and to allow for some ease, because naturally that's also what the body wants. It just wants relief. It doesn't want to constantly be in discomfort and confusion, um, and fear. So that's normal. It's normal that the body just wants some relief from that. And there's really a seeing of how beautifully crazy that the reality of the person actually is. How the effects can feel so real. How the effects can in a way manipulate the body and what is said, how the body acts. It's really amazing. It's remarkable. It's a mystery. Like, all of that is totally unknown as well. And it's also seeing, like, how much of a gravity there actually is with those personal effects. And that was seen over and over in different depths, I guess. The more that seemed to disappear here, the more it was seen the actual gravity of the personal world. Because again, it's kind of like, the healing that I mentioned, the total healing of the person, which is the whole disappearance of the person, it really allows the body to experientially feel the depth of fear and loneliness and insecurity and heartbreak, which can only be felt when the person disappears or as the person is really disappearing. Because in the kind of world of the person, you can't really experience that because it's still in the world of this sense of a me. And that's why this is really the greatest heartbreak and the deepest kind of pain that the body can potentially experience while it's still alive. And again, not necessarily. Sometimes it can be a piece of cake, I guess, or not even noticeable. But yeah, only with that death, then can it be seen that all of that worrying and all of the trying, all of the needing life to look a certain way, needing my relationships to be a certain way, needing to achieve certain things, needing to prove myself. All of that was really a part of this beautiful play, and it was never really getting you anywhere, even though it felt like you were really moving, getting closer to something. It's very convincing. But yeah, it's still also seen that the person isn't a problem. Even though the person isn't really there, but the effects that make it feel really real, that can make it seem like personal free will, or is it just free will? That it feels really true. Like there's no problem with that. But it's quite remarkable to just see again and again, more thoroughly, more clearly, more obviously that I never did anything. No one ever did anything. Those thoughts and emotions and actions or inactions were all just happening on its own. Everything that was heard, everything that was taken on as I should be this way, I shouldn't be that way, I should do this, I shouldn't do that, I should go for that, I shouldn't go for that. And everything that happened, perhaps based on that, it was all just what was apparently unfolding. And no one was ever at the center of anything. Nothing was happening to you. You never did anything. So there's no one at fault. There's no one to blame anymore. Like all of the worst decisions, the things that you thought were the worst decisions of your life, were the best decisions of your life, you never did that. It was all just what was happening. And that too is all just an idea. This kind of memory of what you thought something, how you thought something actually unfolded, and your part in it and other people's part in it is all just an idea. We really don't have any idea what's actually going on because it's all kind of mental constructs that seemed really real. And as it all crumbles, it's just like clearer and clearer that we don't know anything, that we've never known anything, that nothing was as concrete as we thought it was, even though it felt like it was. And as the personal reality seems to open up into this absolute freedom that already was, that just is, then it can be relieving, devastating, disturbing, quite disturbing, actually. And beautiful. So an answer was never given. There was never a final, oh, I get it now. I now know the reason for my life, for life. I now know the reason why this personal reality seems so real. And now it's totally gone as if it never really happened. You never get an answer. That need to know is not fulfilled. It just disappears. And then there can just be this contentment for no one. Just contentment. And that doesn't mean that confusion and disturbance can't still arise. The body can feel whatever it feels. Any thoughts can arise. It's just not arising for anyone. Life is crazy. what you're left with, well, no one is left with it, but it's seen that life is beautifully pointless. There is actually no real point to it. It's just beautifully as it is. No real rhyme or reason. I guess it's totally open for interpretation, but all of it is just that, an interpretation.